She had a suitcase as she stood in my doorway. Her eyes were crimson, as if she had been sobbing or was about to cry. She muttered, "My dad said you need a wife." I heard myself reply, "Then stay here with me," before my thinking caught up. Like steam in the chilly night air, the words hovered between us. As if she wasn't sure she had heard correctly, Maddie Carter blinked at me. Her oversized flannel and disheveled ponytail were surrounded by a gentle yellow halo from the porch light. Her beat-up blue Honda sat chilling in the dark in the gravel driveway of my leased farmhouse outside Bozeman, which was deserted behind her. After looking into my face, she finally responded, "You don't mean that." All at once, I did and I didn't. I pushed the door open wider and added, "You shouldn't be out here with a suitcase at 11:30 at night. Enter before my neighbor notifies the sheriff that I am taking in a fugitive rancher's daughter." She laughed weakly, without amusement, and moved away from me. As she passed, I smelled her, a mix of chilly air, shampoo, and a faint whiff of stable hay. Suddenly, it seemed too small for us both. I rented a modest apartment with 2 bedrooms along the short hall, an open kitchen, a coffee table with a stack of feed catalogs, and an old couch. Other than a faded picture of my dad and me fishing when I was 10, there were no decorations. Before Maddie set her bag down at the door and gave herself a hug as if she didn't know what to do with her arms, I had never considered what it may seem like from another person's perspective. "Want some coffee?" It was simpler to inquire why she was actually here, so I did. She gave a headshake. "I think my heart might burst if I drink coffee right now." I jammed my hands into my jeans pockets. "Would you mind explaining to me why your father is sending you throughout the county as part of a wife recruitment campaign?" That made her jaw stiffen. She remarked, "He's not sending me anywhere." I went out. I momentarily forgot to breathe because of the way she stated it. Slowly I said, "Maddie, what took place?" As if her knees were giving her, she moved past the couch and collapsed upon it. With her elbows resting on her thighs and her fingers pushing into one another, she lunged forward. She began, "You are aware that my dad has been discussing the sale of Carter Ranch." "Yes," I said. The whole town was aware. One of Gallatin County's largest spreads was Carter Ranch. The entire valley would change if her father sold to the developers who were sniffing around. "Well, he gave it a deadline tonight," she stated. "The papers were on the kitchen table with him. He threatened to sign if nothing changed within 30 days. "Things?" I inquired. "What things?" She raised her head and gave me a direct gaze. Her eyes were too clear, hazel, and bloodshot. "Me," she said. "My existence. My future. Who I get married to." My shoulders were stiff. "Continue," she muttered. "He said he's tired. I'm sick of managing everything by myself. I'm sick of thinking about what will happen to it once he leaves. He's looking for stability. A strategy." His precise words were, "A man who'll stick around." With a knot in my stomach, I sunk into the chair across from her. I detested the fact that I could already see where this was going. "And?" I inquired. Then he turned to face me and remarked, "Luke needs a wife." She laughed unsteadily, as if he were discussing the necessity of a new tractor for you. I turned my head away and stared at my coffee table's dent as if it were a possible escape route. He had mentioned that, of course. Since the day I returned from the army 3 years ago, broke, lost, and thankful for any employment, Ray Carter had been attempting to bind me to that country. When the trailer roof finally failed, he helped me move into this farmhouse after hiring me as his foreman and providing me with a trailer. He conveniently forgot that he already had a daughter when he told everyone in town that I was the son he never had. I informed him that's absurd. Maddie continued, "You're both my boss and my friend," I informed him, adding that you would laugh in his face if he said that to you. Then he said, She bit her lip and stopped. "What?" My voice was rougher than I intended when I asked. "I'd sleep better knowing this place was in good hands if Luke had a wife," he remarked. "Rather than selling, I would sign the ranch over. I'll give up trying to keep it if he doesn't." She exhaled deeply. "With your name on it, he essentially put the ranch, my house, and our entire existence on a hook." I massaged my jaw with my hand. 30 days. On my calendar, I also had 30 days circled, but for a different reason. I said, "I was unaware of his deadline." "Even you were unaware of mine," she remarked. I raised my head. "You possess one?" Her throat was struggling as she nodded. "I received an offer," she declared. "A position in Denver. An assistant in marketing for a feed firm. It's a route out, but it's not glamorous. A genuine city, a real paycheck, and real perks. I have to be there in 3 weeks if I accept. 3 weeks. Prior to the 30-day limit set by her father. I remarked, "You always said you wanted to leave. You were the one circling apartments in Denver in those old magazines when we were kids." "Yeah, well, 10-year-old me didn't account for an obstinate rancher father suddenly talking about legacy and keeping the land in trusted hands after he had a minor heart scare," she retorted. I flinched. 6 months prior, I had witnessed the night Ray gripped his chest in the barn. We were all terrified, but it turned out to be more panic than a heart attack. I said, "So he wants you to marry me, to maintain family ownership of the ranch, to maintain me in this place, to maintain order and neatness." She remarked, "He wants someone he trusts, someone who already has a deep affection for that land." I examined my hand's calluses. She was not mistaken. She straightened her posture and said, "But I'm not a chess piece in his legacy plan. And you're not either." That was Maddie, the same feisty, unyielding girl who used to defeat me every time I raced her bareback across the south pasture. I said, "So you packed a bag and drove to my house. To what? Tell me, is your father insane? Request that I say no." She gave me a prolonged look. After he finished speaking, she muttered, "I came here because he looked me in the eye and asked if there was anything between us he needed to know about." And I told a lie. My heart pounded. "What were you saying?" Even though I already knew, I asked. She said, "I told him no. I informed him that we are merely friends. That's not how you'd ever view me. That I would never tie it to a land purchase in order to endanger our, whatever this is." We were surrounded by silence. A truck rumbled by on the road somewhere outside, then vanished. "You believe you told a lie?" I succeeded. She smiled, a tiny, shattered one. "Do you?" I was reminded of the time we nearly kissed in the barn last winter, when I pulled away and muttered something about complicating things. The time my chest hurt while watching her slow dance with a local guy at the 4th of July barbecue, and Maddie laughing on the fence rail at sunrise with grease on her cheek from repairing a broken ATV. "I think your dad is wrong about a lot of things," I added cautiously. "However, he is not blind." Her eyes were sparkling as she gulped. "You see, I am here for that reason. Luke, you said as you were heading out, Montana was described as a detour, not a destination by you. You have been planning and saving. Freedom is what you need, not a woman." Additionally, as she walked away, I concluded for her, "And you need Denver." Slowly, she shook her head. "I need to stop feeling like the two people I care about the most are pulling me in different directions." I had never been punched as hard as that in the army. "So what are you hoping to get out of me?" I inquired. "A pledge that I won't tell your father no? That I'll act like this didn't happen?" She looked up into my eyes, and there it was, the honest, frightened truth. She remarked, "I want to know if he's right. If there's anything here that I've been trying to avoid mentioning. Because I can't travel to Denver and act like my entire existence isn't still here with you if there is." All of a sudden, the room was too warm. My own heartbeat was audible in my ears. I started to say, "Maddie," but she raised a hand. "Hold on," she said. "There's still another thing. He trusts you, but that's not the only reason he wants us together. He added a condition to it." "How is it conditional?" I inquired. She lowered her voice to a near whisper. She threatened to sell the ranch if she didn't persuade him to marry her within the following 30 days. The meeting with the developers has already been set by him. I felt like the floor was tilting beneath me. I had 30 days to make a decision about whether I was a spouse, a landowner, a man who stayed, or the man who packed up and left when Carter Ranch was transformed into retreats. Half to myself, I mumbled, "And he thinks I need a wife." With her eyes fixed on mine, Maddie leaned closer and murmured, "You asked what I want from you. The truth is what I want. Should I remain? Should I go? Did your boss see something that we're both too afraid to acknowledge? Or am I just his daughter?" I had a dry mouth. Tangled up with another secret I hadn't yet revealed to her, the response gnawed at my chest. I was scheduled to sign documents for a new position in Dallas in precisely 31 days, which would put me as far away from Carter Ranch and Maddie as possible. And all of a sudden, for the first time since accepting that offer, I wasn't certain it was what I wanted. I took a while to respond to her. It wasn't that I didn't understand my feelings. The issue was that I was well aware of my feelings, and expressing them aloud would make a huge difference. Maddie waited while sitting on my old couch. A strip of yellow was still leaking from the porch light beneath the front door. The refrigerator began to hum softly somewhere in the kitchen. "You're looking for the truth?" At last I said. She gave one nod. "I came here by car for it." With my elbows on my knees and my fingers clenched so tightly that my knuckles became white, I leaned forward. I remarked, "Your dad is not mistaken about something existing between us. He's simply mistaken to believe that he has control over it." Her gaze wavered. "There must be something." I replied, "There has been. For a long time. Last winter, I nearly gave you a kiss in the barn." She exhaled sharply in astonishment. "I recall," she muttered. "You muttered something about the horse spooking after dropping the bucket." I said, "The horse didn't spook." "Yes, I did." A slow, agonizing smile tugged at her lips. "You're a fool." "I understand," I replied. Her look was a mixture of relief and anxiety, as if she wanted to laugh and cry all at once. I continued, "But that's not all of it." "It's not, of course," she stated. "With you, it never is." "I'm supposed to be in Dallas in 31 days, I said, looking at a crack in the coffee table rather than her face. "I agreed to work for a large equipment company. Excellent value. Great advancement. The contract has already been sent." There was a heavy silence between us. "Dallas," she said slowly again. "Like in Texas. 1,000 miles away, as it were." I wished I hadn't said. "More like 1,500. She slumped her shoulders and sat back. "You simply intended to go." I blurted out. "I was going to give notice. I had no intention of abandoning your father or the ranch. Next week, I was going to tell you both." She said, "And you didn't think, hey, maybe I should say to the woman I've almost kissed that I'm leaving the state?" "I believe that keeping it simple would lessen the pain," I remarked. "Say it like a fresh start. No sloppy emotions. No this." She gave a harsh laugh. "How are you finding that?" "Very bad," I said. She loosened the tie and let it fall about her shoulders by running a hand through her hair. I was more affected by the sight than I should have been. She stated, "Let me clarify this. My dad is holding your job and my house in a twisted prize dangling over our heads. You're expected to relocate to Dallas immediately following his deadline, and he wants me to wed you in order to keep the ranch." I said, "That's about it." "And you?" She gestured toward me. "You're sitting here telling me that we have a relationship, that you've experienced it, that you nearly gave me a kiss. However, you accepted the position." Before I could stop myself, I blurted, "Because I thought you'd never look at me the way I look at you. Because I always thought she was born for this area. Whenever I watched you nurse a calf, quarrel with your dad, or discuss crop rotations, I didn't want to be the one to tear you away from the only life you had ever known. And I wasn't." After a brief moment of softness, her features hardened once more. She muttered, "You don't get to decide my life for me. My father does that." I shut my eyes. "You're correct." With her bare feet murmuring against the worn rug, she got up and began to pace. "Now what?" she inquired. "After 5 years, when you're still mending fences in the snow, you marry me, remain here, rescue the ranch, breach your Dallas contract, and despise me? Or Ray sells to the developers. You move to Dallas, I move to Denver, and we both act as though we don't wake up in the middle of the night to the sound of cattle gates in our dreams?" The final syllable caused her voice to break. With a tight chest, I also stood up. I asked, "What if it's not that easy? What if I don't have to be stuck after getting married?" She paused her pacing and gently turned to face me. "What are you saying?" I said, "I'm saying your dad wants a plan. He wants a trustworthy person associated with the ranch. However, that does not imply that we would be imprisoned. The paper can be altered. It is possible to write leases. You can make deals. Perhaps we buy ourselves some time. By marrying," she stated. "By transforming his circumstances into ours," I clarified. "You stated that you wanted to know the truth about our relationship. So here it is. Maddie, I adore you. I have loved you for a longer period of time than I have been ready to acknowledge, even to myself." Her breath caught. She muttered, "You can't say that as a side comment. You can't interrupt a business proposal to say, 'I'm in love with you.'" I remarked, "It's not a business proposal. Dallas and the ranch are only pieces on the board. I can never leave you without feeling like I've made the worst decision of my life." The air between us was vibrating as we stood a few feet apart. She encircled herself with her arms as if she were chilly. She added abruptly, You know what my dad told me when my mom left? People stay for land, money, or duty, he remarked. When things go tough, love is the first thing to leave. I answered, that's not love. That is fear masquerading as knowledge. Perhaps, she responded. However, I saw him ingest that idea deeply. I was raised on it. I refuse to enter into a marriage in which you look back on Dallas as the life you ought to have had after one difficult season. I said, I'm not asking you to. I'm pleading with you to. Allow me to fight for what I want. Curving into a tiny, uncertain smile, she gazed up at me. You kiss me like you don't have 30 days hanging over your head tonight, she added. So I did. There was no deadline, no Dallas, no ranch, just her, warm and genuine in my arms. For a few long, dizzy seconds after I leaned over and kissed the girl I had been feigning was simply my boss's daughter. She pressed her forehead to mine as we finally separated, breathing heavily. She said, my dad is going to go crazy. I said, my heart still pounding, yeah. But I'm kind of cool with that for the first time. The spectacle that would await us less than 10 hours later, when we drove up the lengthy dirt road to Carter Ranch to inform Ray of our plan, was something neither I nor any of us were prepared for. His pickup is in the yard already. Beside it was a slick black SUV. Additionally, there were two suit-clad individuals standing on the porch with a folder bearing the developer's logo. I would have drove straight by the house if Maddie hadn't grabbed my wrist. When she noticed the dark SUV, her fingernails bit into my flesh. She muttered, they're already here. I felt sick to my stomach. He accelerated the meeting. As usual, Ray's old Ford was sitting crookedly in the yard. The SUV seemed out of place next to it. It was gleaming and immaculate, and the door had a logo that I knew from the glossy brochure that had been accidentally placed on the desk of the ranch office a few months prior. Development at High Ridge. I didn't believe it, but I said, perhaps he's just talking. It begins with talking, Maddie whispered. We exited the truck. The morning was bright and cool, with the smell of breath in the air. On the porch, two men in dark jackets stood, one in the middle of a sentence. When they noticed us, they halted. Behind them, in the doorway, Ray had his hand on the frame as if he needed it to keep himself straight. He appeared more mature than he had been just a week before. Deeper lines, stubble that is grayer, eyes that are tired. His amazement turned sharper as he continued. Maddie, what on earth have you been up to? She tightened her hold on my wrist and then released it. We must speak, she stated. By myself. Taking a short, trained look at us, the taller man on the porch turned. He said, is this your daughter? We were just talking about, Ray interrupted. Yeah, this is my daughter. And my foreman. It's Mark Hale here, Luke. He is the High Ridge representative. I shook the man's hand and pushed myself up the stairs. His watch was likely worth more than my truck, and his palm felt dry and warm. Nice to meet you, Mark remarked. You've been talked about a lot. You keep this place running, Ray replies. I forced a tight grin. I try my hardest. Looking over the fields behind the home, Mark remarked. Well, if everything works out, maybe we'll find a place for you on the new project. We prefer to retain those who are familiar with the area. I tightened my jaw. Let us not overestimate ourselves. Ray cleared his throat. Why don't you all come in and grab a cup of coffee? In a moment, I will join you. After hesitating, Mark nodded. He said, we'll give you 10. Ray, we have a strict schedule. Today, my employer needs those signatures. 10 minutes. My heart began to race. The three of us were on the porch when the door shut behind the developers. The cold that flowed down my back was not alleviated by the January sun. Ray initially glanced at his daughter. Your car was gone when I woke up, he said. No message. No phone call. You think I won't be concerned? Her face flashed with remorse as she flinched. She said, I came to talk to Luke. I had to think. He retorted, you couldn't think in your own room? Not on this, she answered. Not about you attempting to exchange my life for a piece of real estate. He clenched his jaw. He jerked his head in my direction and demanded, is that what he told you? I intervened before things got out of hand by saying, she told me what you said last night. Regarding my yearning for a wife. Regarding handing over the ranch in the event that things changed. Ray glanced at me, and there it was, a mixture of hurt and treachery. He declared, I have been honest with you since the day you arrived here. I didn't conceal the figures. I told the truth about how difficult this has been. I believe that to be significant. It does, I said. That is the reason we are here. We, he said again. Now you too have we. I could feel Maddie's shoulder lightly brush against my arm as she took a stride toward me. Even though it was the smallest movement, it completely altered the environment around us. We're in love, Dad, she added, her tone more composed than mine. It came out like a blast of words. Ray seemed to be waiting for one of us to chuckle and declare it a joke as he looked at her and then at me. His shoulders drooped slightly when we didn't. I understand, he muttered. That caught me off guard. You what? I'm not blind, he yelled out. I observed how you exchanged glances in the barn. Last spring, I overheard you two fighting over who would take the north fence line. It sounded more like a married couple than two ranch hands. He gave a headshake. I just assumed you were wise enough to avoid securing yourselves here for something that might not last. Maddie crossed her arms. So you chose to restrain us instead. He answered, I gave you options. Remaining. Stability. A means of preserving Carter Ranch. I figured I could give you a gentle prod and save the land at the same time if you kids were too afraid to acknowledge what was happening between you. She said, You're not listening, Dad. We're not here to inform you that you're correct. Because you are afraid of what will happen when you are gone. We have come to tell you that we will not allow you to sell everything you have built. Frightened, he roared, laughing without amusement. You believe that fear is at play here? Maddie, this has to do with math. Debt, vet bills and taxes. Every other week, that old Baylor dies. Do you believe that love can buy diesel? She retorted. I believe that love prevents you from selling our house to the first man in a suit who flashes numbers in your face. He pushed a palm to his chest, winced, and opened his mouth. I was by his side in an instant. Are you all right? He dismissed me with a wave. I'm all right. Simply put, it's tight. Occurs when I am agitated. I recalled the night in the barn 6 months prior, when his knees buckled and his fingers sank into my shoulder while we awaited the emergency. The doctor had labeled it a panic attack. Reaction to stress. Only a warning shot, not a full-blown heart attack. How awful is it? Now I asked. Actually, he took a while to respond. His eyes strayed from us to the meadows that extended to the edge of the trees. Winter grass that is dry. The posts of the fence are tilting. Shingles are missing from the barn roof. Finally, he replied, After that scare, I took out another loan. I didn't inform you. Refused to listen to the lecture. I reasoned that we could work things out if I could keep things going until you settled. Until I got settled? I said it again. He looked at me and replied, With you. I assumed you had established roots. After everything. Army, jumping all around. I assumed you would remain. This is why it hurts so much. He pointed to the SUV. I'm sick of waiting for people to think I'm worth staying for, so I'm signing. I felt the shame right in my chest. The words tasted like metal as I said, I accepted a job in Dallas. It's accurate. I was about to go. Despite having heard it before, Maddie gave me the impression that she had never heard it before. It was louder when she heard it in front of her father. I forced myself to look Ray in the eyes and said, But I'm not sure I want it anymore. Ray gave a snort. You can't say that like it will make everything better. I understand, I replied. However, you also deserve the complete truth. I don't like this place, so I didn't accept the job. I took it because I didn't believe I could have both the ranch and your kid at the same time. Once more, silence. The kind that gives the impression that the air is solid. Dad, we're not asking you to give us the world, Maddie said. Please give us an opportunity to prevent it from being demolished. He glanced between us. He said softly, You came here to tell me you're in love. That's really lovely. However, you have a better strategy than the one that's on my kitchen table right now. I said, Yes, before Maddie had a chance to question herself. We do. It's dangerous and messy, but it's genuine. Ray's eyebrow went up. So let's hear it. I have around 5 minutes left until the man inside begins to knock on the door. I took a deep breath. You put the ranch in both of your names if we get married, I remarked, feeling Maddie stiffen even though we had already discussed it. Maintain authority inside the family. I talked to the bank again. We make savings. Some grazing rights can be leased. In town, I take up side jobs. Before you even consider selling again, we give it a year. He looked at me as if I had become a second-rate person. You think you can fix 30 years of broken equipment and bad seasons in a year? He asked. You've been consuming too many home renovation shows, boy. I answered. I believe we should have a chance. All three of us. You too. A shot that doesn't finish with you looking at a map of your former land that is filled with names of cul-de-sacs. Maddie took a step forward, pressing her shoulder firmly against mine. She stated, "You can sign anything you want if we fail or if we're in worse shape in a year. I'll assist you in choosing the buyer. I'll travel to Dallas, Denver, or somewhere else. But let's give it a shot first." I hope he didn't want to acknowledge it, but Ray's eyes were now brilliant, not with wrath, but with something that frightened me more. "And you believe that getting married will increase the bank's trust in you?" he inquired. I remarked, "I think it will be easier if we are honest about who we are. You already provide me family-like treatment. This merely acknowledges it on paper." After staring at me for a while, he turned to face his daughter. He questioned her, "And this isn't just some stunt to make your old man feel better? You genuinely adore this moron?" She made no hesitation at all. "Yes," she replied. "I genuinely do." My heart struck my ribs hard. Ray wiped his face with his hand. He appeared completely exhausted when he dropped it. He whispered, "You children are crazy. You understand that, don't you? You can't build a fence in a weekend with marriage. Years have passed. Winter is here. It involves observing one another become strangers and then figuring out how to fall in love with them once more." "I understand," I muttered. "I understand it because I've witnessed enough failed marriages. But I also know that if I fail at this with her, I'd rather fail at anything else." Adjacent to me, Maddie's breath caught. Ray gazed at us, his eyes moving behind him like a hurricane. He parted his lips, shut them, then spun around and jerked. The screen door opened. "Come on," he urged. "I might as well do it all at once if I'm going to screw up my blood pressure today." After exchanging glances, Maddie and I followed him inside. The fragrance of coffee and thick, pricey contract paper filled the kitchen. Mark and his companion sat at the table with pens spread out like cutlery and folders open. "Is everything okay?" Mark's smile was bright and courteous as he asked. "At noon, we have another client, so," Ray interrupted, saying, "Plans changed." His fingers trembled slightly as he pulled out a chair, but his voice remained firm. "My foreman and daughter have something to say before I sign anything." The entire room turned to see us. My mouth became parched. With a short squeeze, Maddie's fingers touched mine beneath the table. With the developers looking on, Ray's future in jeopardy, and the ranch's burden bearing down on me, I came to the following realization. Saving land wasn't the only goal here. I was making a decision about the type of man I wanted to be for the rest of my life. Ray was swaying on his feet, his face fading in color, when I inhaled, reached for Maddie's hand correctly this time, and opened my mouth to speak. "Dad," Maddie said. His fingers clawed at his shirt as his hand returned to his chest. Ray Carter's knees immediately gave way in front of us all. I hardly had time to move since he dropped so quickly. "Ray!" I sprang forward and yelled. I caught him by the arms as the chair slammed back. His head tipped back and his eyes were forced shut as his knees struck the floor with force. "Dial 911. Maddie's voice was high, cracking, and terrified. Mark's companion pulled out his phone and stated, "I got it." "Remain with him." With his fingers pushing in as if to pry something out, Ray's hand was crushed against his chest. "I'm fine," he exclaimed. "Just give me a minute." I murmured, gently putting him onto his back. "You're not fine." "Remain motionless." He breathed quickly and shallowly. His forehead was drenched with sweat. I turned to face Maddie. Her dad's face was nearly as white as hers. "It's happening once more," she said. "As in the barn." I remarked, "This time, it might be worse. We're not going to wait it out." "The address," the man on the phone blurted off. In that steady, rehearsed tone, I heard him say chest pain, history, and possible cardiac. Ray's face caught my attention. I said, "Hey, observe me." His blurry eyes flitted open. He rasped, "Don't let them sign anything." I took a deep breath. "At this time, we are not discussing land." His twitching fingers reached for my shirt. His voice was gruff as he whispered, "Listen to me, boy. In the event that I do not return from this," Maddie yelled, "you're coming back," and fell to her knees on his opposite side. She broke down in tears. "You have no right to say that. You make sure this place doesn't become some weekend playground for rich," he continued, disregarding her. "Dad," she exclaimed, heaved his chest. The boundaries of the room were blurred, not by my eyes, but by the adrenaline pounding through me. I forced my voice to be calm and said, "Ray, Do those sirens sound to you? They were there, screaming in the distance, getting louder, but they were faint. It's helpful, I said. Those are the ones who know what to do. Breathing is your job. That's all. He looked up at me with a look of regret in his eyes. He said, I didn't mean to push you. You too. I understand, I muttered. We're going to shout at you later. 3 minutes later, with boots on scuffed linoleum and questions flying, the paramedics rushed in. How long has he been acting in this manner? Heart problems in the past? Any drugs? They performed a rehearsed dance around us, taking vital signs, tying leads, and hoisting him onto the stretcher as if he were weightless. With a trembling but clear voice, Maddie responded as best she could. Her knees were about to buckle, so I grasped her elbow. One of the paramedics declared, We are transporting him to Bozeman General. Your family? Maddie gave a nod. I am his daughter. The man gave me a glance. You? I am. The word became lodged in my throat. He's kin, Maddie declared. He's on his way. There was no argument between them. Mark took a step back, looking pale and completely out of place as they rolled Ray out. He called after him and said, Ray, we can reschedule. Ray didn't open his eyes and raised a wobbly hand. Leave my land, he whispered. The paramedics closed the door behind them, and the kitchen became suddenly too quiet. Mark cleared his throat. He said, We'll be in touch. Clearly, now is not a good time. No, I answered in a monotone voice. It's not. There isn't a deal today, in case that wasn't obvious. Perhaps any day shortly. He nodded once, but his jaw tensed. A decision of this nature doesn't remain off the table indefinitely, he stated. You both are aware of that. We know, I answered. After gathering their folders, they left. With its tires crunching on gravel, the SUV withdrew. Then, with the sound of sirens receding in the distance, Maddie and I were alone in the kitchen. With wild eyes, she turned to face me. What if her voice cracked? What happens if he doesn't arrive at the hospital? Bringing her closer to me, I drew her into my embrace. She didn't fight back. She grasped my shirt and buried her face in my chest, as if she was worried that I would disappear too. I whispered, He's a stubborn old bastard. By dinner time, he will have frightened half the nurses and be flirting with the other half. You're unaware of that, she said into my shirt. No, I said. I don't. However, I am aware that he is too cruel to engage in a contract discussion. She laughed, but it was shattered, and then she sobbed. A minute later, she withdrew, wiping her face. We must leave, she declared. Now. Yes, I said. I'll take the wheel. Neither of us spoke much on the way to Bozeman. In the winter light, the fields smudged by, brown and deserted. Because I would start thinking about all the ways things could go wrong if I stared at her for too long, I kept my hands firmly on the wheel and my eyes on the road. Time became strange in the emergency room. We sat in plastic chairs under fluorescent lights that made everyone appear ill after checking in at the front desk and answering questions about his insurance and prescriptions. Maddie's head jerked up each time a nurse or doctor entered the waiting area. At last, a woman in blue scrubs yelled out, Carter? Both of us stood. She took us along a light-filled corridor that smelled of something fried from the cafeteria and antiseptic. As we strolled, she remarked, He's stable. He seemed to have suffered a small heart attack. We reached him in time, but we have additional tests to do. He is requesting his daughter. Maddie's knees nearly gave way with relief. Grateful, she muttered. After looking at our clasped hands, the nurse turned to face me. You have family too? She inquired. I opened my mouth to say, I work for him, but it felt awkward suddenly. He's with us, Maddie said. He is almost like a son. The nurse gave a nod. You two are welcome to enter for a short while. Ray was lying in bed with an oxygen tube in his nose and cables on his chest. His eyes were awake and as bright as ever, but he somehow appeared smaller. When he spotted us, he rasped, You look awful. Maddie laughed a little too softly. You have a lot to say. I moved over from the bed. How are you feeling? He remarked, Like a truck hit me. But according to the doctor, I have at least one more opportunity to scream at you fools. The nurse looked at him. Mr. Carter, try to keep your heart rate down, she advised. You haven't left the woods yet. She abandoned us. Ray's eyes shifted from Maddie's face to our hands together. He questioned, Are you two still on that crazy marriage plan? Maddie took a whiff. Your first question is that you had a heart attack? This is my second, he declared. The first question is, did you advise those suits to place their contracts in a less than ideal location? I was unable to resist. I smiled. Just about. Well, he whispered. The second one now. After inhaling, Maddie moved toward the bed. Dad, she said, we haven't spoken to them yet. However, we did devise a strategy. An actual one. Not only a panic attack. He kept a close eye on her. I'm paying attention. She gave me a look. I gave her hand a squeeze. She stated, we still want to get married. Not because you pushed us, though. Since we made the decision. Because we were fools to act as though this hadn't already occurred. He turned to look at me. And you? Are you still prepared to bind yourself to this unyielding girl and this unyielding land? I looked him in the eyes. Yes, I said. Yes, I am. On one stipulation. He raised an eyebrow. Are you now requesting things from my hospital bed? I said, I'm requesting respect. It's not a favor to you if we do this. It is not remuneration for a job or a plot of property. We live it. That's how you handle it. You don't act rudely toward us each time a bill is due. He looked at me for a while. He then turned to face Maddie. He said, you really love this idiot? Her eyes gleamed as she nodded. Indeed, I genuinely do. He let out a long, weary sigh. He remarked, I was terrified of losing everything for a long time. Your mother, the ranch, my well-being. I didn't realize that clinging too tightly is merely another way to let go. He shut his eyes for a moment and then opened them again. All right, he said, this is my counterproposal. When I get out of bed, not before, you two get married. No hurrying to the courthouse or doing it behind my back. Even if it's in the barn with bales for chairs, I want a front row seat. Maddie quickly put her palm to her mouth. Dad, I'm going to the bank, he continued. We'll discuss placing the property in a trust that bears your names. Not immediately. Not all at once. But let's get started. It's your year. If you can demonstrate that you won't run during the first drought, perhaps even more. He looked in my direction. He remarked, you still call that Dallas company and tell them the truth. Good if they can wait. If they are unable to, we will find a solution. I've stopped making decisions out of fear. You ought to be as well. My eyes were burning with emotion. Yes, sir. And you don't sacrifice your dreams for mine, he told Maddie. We'll figure out a way to make Denver work without giving our souls to High Ridge if you still want it in a year. Her shoulders trembled. Agree, she muttered. He appeared suddenly tired as he closed his eyes once more. He said, now leave before the nurse throws you out for making me sentimental. Return tomorrow. Bring coffee. Not that muck from the hospital. Silently, we walked out of the room. Maddie exhaled deeply, as if she had been holding it for years, and leaned back against the wall in the hallway. She said, he's actually going to let us try. Yes, I said. He is. As if to test the words, she said, and we're really going to get married. I answered, if you still want to. She moved closer, took hold of the front of my jacket, and drew me into an unquestionable kiss. She pressed her lips to mine and murmured, I still want to. Even in the absence of a ranch. Even though we wind up looking at a parking lot rather than a pasture from our cramped apartment in Billings, Dallas, or Denver. I pressed her forehead to mine. You realize that one of the 3 cities you just listed in 2 states hardly qualifies as a city. This time she actually laughed. Her words were, we'll figure it out. As long as we're involved. We did get married in the barn a few months later. Ray stopped to collect his breath, but his smile was bigger than I had ever seen as he led her down the makeshift aisle between the stalls. Our guests were given old quilts to cover bales of hay. Where the tractor typically parked, the local preacher stood. We didn't have a string quartet or costly flowers. We had the sound of the wind outside, the scent of leather and hay, and the people who truly cared. Ray simply snorted when the minister asked if anyone had any arguments against our marriage. It's too late, he declared. For years, they have been stuck together. Maddie laughed along with everyone else. We went out onto the porch after the guests had left and the music had stopped. In the last of the light, the fields were still ours and spread out. For the time being. For a long time, perhaps. Her head rested on my shoulder as she leaned into me. She echoed that first night when she whispered, my dad said you need a wife. I gazed at her hand in mine, at her ring. He was mistaken, I answered. Oh, she teasingly said. How about? I muttered. I didn't need a wife. You were necessary to me. She grinned slowly and confidently, as if she had made the decision to live her own life. Well, she muttered, because I am not leaving. With the land in front of us and our entire chaotic, unpredictable future ahead, I finally believed her for the first time in a long time.
If this story stayed with your heart, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share with your friends.